Here, pass me that pack, would you?
Oh, yeah, sure. Here you go.
Thanks. Let me just get that for you. Listen to that little stark.
Always a good sound.
Yeah, that harsh flick of the flint against the steel.
Uh-huh.
Right. There we go.
Takes a second to catch.
Take a drag. I just love that long exhale, that heavy sigh of smoke hitting the air.
It instantly changes the room, doesn't it?
It really does. The air in the studio is already getting thick, beautifully smoky, and honestly, I feel like we absolutely need it to be tonight.
We definitely do. There's some ice in that bucket over on the cart. Do you mind pouring us a couple of those cocktails?
Not at all. Let me just get this ice clinking against the glass here.
Perfect. Just a heavy pour, please.
You got it. The amber liquid, the slow melt, it feels entirely appropriate to lean into this aesthetic right now.
Yeah, we're definitively breaking from our usual format today.
Totally.
This is not our standard, bright, sunny, hyper-optimized Tuesday morning commute kind of deep dive.
No, definitely not.
We need the smoke. We need the heavy drinks to lighten the sheer weight of what we're about to read.
We really do. I mean, that tiny spark from the lighter we just heard, that might be the only real, unoptimized, completely raw thing you experience all day.
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly.
Because we are broadcasting a very different kind of energy tonight to match the source material sitting right in front of us.
Quite the stack.
It is. I'm looking at this stack of printed digital manifestos, these sprawling essays and cryptic lyrics, and it is just radiating this cynical, almost overwhelming energy.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels dangerous, in a way most internet content simply isn't anymore.
Right. It feels like we've intercepted a transmission that was never meant for polite, algorithmically curated society.
Exactly.
It has the bite of genuine counterculture.
It really does. Or, well, I shouldn't say exactly, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly what this even is.
A lot to process.
Let's establish our mission for tonight, for you listening in the dark out there. We are dissecting a collection of texts from a highly mysterious, incredibly provocative entity known as Radio-MANNADORO.
Radio-MANNADORO. It's a great name.
Right. And my first question when I opened this file was, wait, is that the name of the pirate radio station or is that the name of the musician?
That's the million-dollar question.
From what we can piece together, it's actually both. It's a musician's alter ego, a persona that operates as a broadcasting entity.
Essentially a one-man pirate radio station transmitting from the absolute depths of digital despair.
That is exactly the vibe. What we have here is a scathing, absolutely ruthless critique of the digital attention economy.
And of algorithmic manipulation, too.
Yes, and most uncomfortably of the modern internet user.
Which means us.
Which means us, yeah. Think of the Beat Generation. Think of Jack Kerouac or Allen Ginsberg howling in a smoke-filled room in the 1950s about the crushing conformity of post-war America.
Right, that raw, unfiltered anger.
Exactly. This entity, Radio-MANNADORO, is doing the modern equivalent of that. But instead of howling at suburban conformity, they are howling at our willing enslavement to glowing rectangles.
It's a brutal mirror being held up to a highly cynical, deeply disillusioned audience.
A very heavy mirror.
Yeah, and the tone is intentionally provocative. Like, it is specifically designed to offend our modern sensibilities.
It really is. But before we step fully into this dark, smoky room and unpack these manifestos, I need to make something crystal clear to you, the listener.
Yeah, we definitely need to lay the ground rules here.
Our crucial, non-negotiable disclaimer. These texts are essentially live wires. They contain highly politically charged references.
Very charged.
The author takes direct, name shots at specific figures in the media landscape. For example, they target the Italian commentator Francesco Toscano, labeling him a gatekeeper.
Okay, they go right after him.
They launch blistering critiques at the United Nations. They ruthlessly, and I mean ruthlessly, mock both left-wing and right-wing political factions with equal disgust.
Yeah, the text pulls absolutely no punches.
None at all.
It views the entire geopolitical establishment and, ironically, the so-called alternative or counterculture commentators with the exact same level of profound contempt.
And because the text is so heavily armed with political artillery, I want to state unequivocally for the record, we are taking absolutely no sides tonight.
Zero sides.
We are not endorsing any political factions mentioned in this text. We aren't validating the critiques of specific individuals, and we aren't here to play pundit or referee some political debate.
No, that's not our job.
We are simply here to report, to unpack, and to deeply analyze the underlying philosophical arguments presented in this incredibly raw source material.
We are treating this manifesto as an archaeological artifact of modern digital psychology.
I love that phrasing. A completely impartial, philosophical dissection of a deeply partial, highly aggressive text.
We are just observers of the phenomenon.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into the deep end here. Okay, let's unpack this. Why does reading these angry, unpolished manifestos feel like someone sneaking up behind you and throwing a bucket of freezing cold water right in your face?
It's incredibly jarring.
It's so uncomfortable. But as I was reading it, I found I just couldn't look away. What is the psychological mechanism at play here?
Well, I think it feels like ice water because it violently strips away the comfortable victimhood narratives we constantly tell ourselves about our online lives.
Okay, say more about that.
Usually when society talks about the problems of the internet, what do? We look upward.
Right. We blame the massive tech monopolies.
Exactly. We blame the opaque algorithms. We blame the shadowy billionaire CEOs sitting in Silicon Valley boardrooms engineering our addiction.
Because it's a comforting narrative.
It really is because it absolves us. It makes us the innocent victims of a predatory system.
We are just the poor, helpless users trapped in their giant web.
Right. But the journey we are about to go on with Radio-MANNADORO does something entirely different and honestly deeply offensive to the modern ego.
It takes that pointing finger and snaps it backwards.
Snap. Right back at us. It points the finger squarely at the user.
Yeah.
The core, terrifying premise we are going to explore tonight is that we are not victims. We are all willing, active, eager accomplices in our own digital exploitation.
Wow. That is a remarkably heavy premise.
It changes everything.
It completely shifts the burden of guilt from the creator of the platform to the consumer clicking the button.
Yeah, the responsibility is entirely ours.
I want to start by looking at the aesthetic of the broadcast itself because I think the medium is a huge part of the message here.
Exactly.
When I was poring over these pages, I was just marveling at the uncurated, almost violent energy of the text. It doesn't read like anything else on the internet today.
It stands out because it defies the single fundamental law of the modern digital landscape,
Which is?
the law of optimization. Everything you see, read, or hear online today has its edges sanded down. It is A/B tested, it is search engine optimized, it is algorithmically smoothed out to ensure maximum engagement and minimum friction.
I see that everywhere. I mean, if you look at a modern digital creator and influencer, what is their default posture?
Mostly begging.
It's totally begging. It's a posture of submission to the audience, Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Please comment down below to feed the algorithm.
Right. It's exhausting.
It is a constant, desperate, humiliating plea for validation and metric growth. But the persona of Radio-MANNADORO, it is the exact antithesis of that desperation.
How would you describe the difference in the vibe, though?
Well, using an analogy to really capture this, reading Radio-MANNADORO doesn't feel like watching a hyper-edited, ringlet YouTube video jump cutting every 3 seconds to keep your attention.
Right.
It feels like you've accidentally tuned into frequencies traveling in subspace.
Subspace frequencies. I like that.
Yeah, it's like finding an old, heavy, wooden-cased cathode ray tube television in a dusty attic. You turn it on, the static electricity makes the hair on your arms stand up, and you turn the dial to a dead channel.
Just white noise.
You're just staring at that black and white static, that thick visual snow, listening to the harsh hiss of a signal. It isn't trying to sell you a mattress.
Yo.
It isn't trying to make you smile. It's just, there.
The subspace frequency analogy is brilliant, and the source text actually leans into that exact cosmic imagery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it describes its own output as a pure, natural emanation of frequency. It compares itself to a star burning via nuclear fusion somewhere out in the deepest, darkest outer edges of the Milky Way.
Oh, I love that imagery. A star burning by nuclear fusion.
Think about the physics of a star, right?
Okay.
A star does not care if you look at it through a telescope.
Right, it doesn't need an audience.
Exactly. It does not burn to keep you warm on Earth. It doesn't modulate its output based on whether you find its light aesthetically pleasing.
It just burns.
It burns because that is its fundamental physical nature. It is undergoing a violent internal reaction, and the light is just a byproduct.
Wow.
The text is claiming that Radio-MANNADORO operates the exact same way. It does not need to attract the sympathy of the listener. It doesn't care about your views. It actively despises your clicks.
It despises the clicks. That is such a foreign concept in 2026.
It really is.
We see this philosophy anchored directly in the architecture of the text, too. The author frequently ends these sprawling, aggressive, beautifully written rants with two incredibly definitive, almost aggressive sign-offs.
Stop the signal and game over.
Stop the signal! It's a chilling command.
It's very final.
It really is. But I want to dig into the mechanics of that phrase. What does stop the signal actually mean in the context of this overarching economic critique?
To understand that, we have to introduce a concept the author calls the attention final market.
The attention final market.
Yeah. Let's trace the history of capitalism for a second to contextualize this. Historically, markets expanded by colonizing physical space, conquering land, extracting physical resources like oil or gold.
Sure.
Then, markets expanded by commodifying human labor, buying your time by the hour in a factory. Then, in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the market commodified your personal data, where you live, what you buy.
But those resources are finite. You eventually run out of land, labor, and basic data.
Exactly. So what is the absolute final frontier of human extraction?
Oh, man.
It is your conscious awareness.
Right.
The attention final market is the internet. It is the real-time mining of your cognitive focus.
That is terrifying.
So when Radio-MANNADORO signs off with Stop the Signal, it is a radical refusal to participate in that specific market.
Oh, see.
They don't want your sympathy or your clicks because they view those metrics as the corrupt currency of an exploitative system. To ask a listener for a like is to legitimize the very market that is enslaving human consciousness.
I see the logical consistency in that, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
I need to push back on this paradox. If they genuinely, truly do not care about clicks, if they don't care if a single human being is on the other end of the cathode ray tube listening to the static Y broadcast at all,
Whoa.
why write the manifesto? Why set up the pirate radio station and push these frequencies out into the digital ether if your core philosophy is simultaneously stop the signal?
It's a fair question.
Isn't the act of broadcasting inherently, fundamentally, a desire to be heard by someone?
That is the eternal, agonizing paradox of the true dissident.
Right.
And I think to truly understand it, we have to look at the historical essence of counterculture movements. Why did the beat poets read their most profound, soul-bearing poetry in completely empty, smoke-filled coffee houses in Greenwich Village?
Because they had to.
Exactly. You don't speak into the void because you want to monetize the echo. You speak into the void because the truth, as you perceive it, fundamentally demands to be spoken.
It's not a marketing strategy.
No, it's a biological compulsion. It's
Weird.
a violent expulsion of psychic energy.
It's the star undergoing nuclear fusion. It has to release the heat or it literally explodes.
Precisely. And the text provides a fantastic cultural reference to explain what they are fighting against. It refers to the modern homogenized masses as Borgs.
Oh, Borgs. Resistance is futile.
Exactly.
The classic Star Trek villains, a race of cybernetic organisms that assimilate every unique species they encounter into a single, terrifying, monolithic hive mind.
Right. In a world entirely populated by Borgs, broadcasting a dissenting, unassimilated frequency is an act of existential rebellion.
Yeah.
It's a way of proving to yourself that you haven't been completely absorbed into the collective. You scream into the static to prove to yourself that you still have lungs.
Wow.
You don't scream because you think the noise will miraculously wake the Borgs up from their programming. You scream to confirm your own sovereignty.
You scream to prove you still have lungs. That is a beautifully bleak way to put it.
It really is.
And it leads us perfectly into looking at exactly who Radio-MANNADORO is screaming at. They aren't screaming at the tech billionaires.
And they are not.
They are screaming at us. They call the general public the normaloids living in the Mega Truman Show.
The normaloids.
The language used to describe the average internet user is just dripping with pure, unadulterated contempt.
It is a ruthless sociological diagnosis of the general public. It strips away any illusion of human dignity in how we consume information.
Well, let's unpack this concept the author calls the law of the jungle.
Okay.
The source material has this incredibly visceral, almost biological critique of the masses. They call people ruminants.
Ruminants. Like cows.
Right. When you think about a ruminant, a cow, a sheep, what is its defining characteristic? It grazes.
It just chews.
It eats a patch of grass, swallows it, regurgitates it back into its mouth as cud, and physically chews on it again, endlessly.
It's a gross image, but it works.
The author takes this biological process and applies it to how we consume the news cycle.
It's a perfect metaphor for the modern newsfeed.
They talk about people chewing on the latest UN resolution or the newest geopolitical crisis, acting completely shocked and outraged by the cyclical events of the world.
Right, like it's brand new every time.
The text specifically brilliantly points out that if you look at the grand sweep of history, from the war in Vietnam decades ago to the modern unfolding issues in Iran or the Middle East,
Yeah.
nothing fundamental has changed about the nature of human conflict or state power.
Nothing at all.
Yet the ruminants act like every single breaking news push notification on their phone is a brand new, unprecedented historical shock.
The author is calling out the performative amnesia of the public.
Performative amnesia, yeah.
There's a phrase in the text, a rough translation from the Italian would be something like, still these remade virgins who pretend to have been born yesterday to beg for attention.
Oh, wow. Remade virgins.
It captures the absolute disgust of the author.
Right.
People perform this theatrical outrage over completely cyclical, predictable historical events, not because they actually care about the geopolitical outcome, but just to get a hit of social validation from their peer group online.
They want the dopamine hit of being perceived as an engaged, caring citizen without having to do any of the actual difficult work of understanding history.
Exactly.
And then there's that specific insult they use, normaloids.
It's a fascinating, deeply degrading linguistic invention.
It sounds like a monster from a cheap 1950s B-movie sci-fi flick.
It does, and that's completely intentional. Think about the suffix OID.
Okay.
When you add that to a word, it implies something that resembles the root word but lacks its essential essence.
Like an android.
Exactly. An android is a machine that resembles a human but lacks a human soul. A humanoid looks human-shaped but might be an alien. Therefore, a normaloid is a creature that perfectly performs the socially acceptable script of a normal human life. They wake up, they check their feed, they express the culturally mandated outrage of the day, they go to sleep.
But they're empty inside.
They entirely lack a core sovereign consciousness. They're essentially biological algorithms programmed by their social media feeds.
That is so bleak.
They are told by the trending topics what to be furiously angry about on Monday and what to be paralyzed with terror over on Tuesday.
Which brings us to the grand illusion that keeps the normaloids docile, the illusion of choice.
Ah, the Mega Truman Show.
Yes, the author introduces this concept of the Mega Truman Show. For you listening, if you haven't seen the late 90s Jim Carrey movie, The Truman Show, the premise is vital here.
The great movie.
It's about a man who is adopted by a television network at birth. He doesn't realize that his entire life, his town, his friends, his wife, it's all a massive enclosed television set.
Everyone is an actor.
Every single person he interacts with is a paid actor reading from a script. The source text claims that our modern political and cultural reality is functionally identical to that soundstage.
Functionally identical.
They write, no difference between red pill and blue pill. Right and left, power and controlled opposition.
This is a devastating, scorched earth critique of the modern political binary.
It really is.
Radio-MANNADORO is arguing that the fierce, blood-boiling debates we have online, the endless culture wars between the political left and the political right, the clashes between mainstream media and alternative media.
Yeah.
It is all entirely manufactured theater. It is what intelligence agencies call controlled opposition.
Explain how controlled opposition actually works in this context, though, like mechanically.
The idea is that the overarching system, the matrix of power and capital, intentionally funds, amplifies, and creates two opposing factions. It gives the normaloids a sandbox to fight in.
Yeah.
The system actually wants you to exhaust all of your revolutionary energy, all of your intellect, and all of your passion fighting your neighbor over a wedge issue.
Just to keep you busy.
Rather than ever looking up at the sky and realizing the stars are just stage lights mounted to a painted ceiling.
It's like, let me try an analogy here to really ground this, because it's a massive concept.
Go for it.
Imagine you are furiously angry about the state of professional sports. You hate the corruption. You hate the rule changes. You feel the soul of the game has been totally destroyed.
You're fed up.
You are ready to riot. And the powers that be, the league commissioners, they say, we hear your anger. You are absolutely right to be mad. Here, you have a choice to express your rebellion.
Oh, this is good.
You can buy this bright blue jersey, sit in the left side bleachers, and scream at the top of your lungs. Or if you disagree with them, you can buy this bright red jersey, sit in the right side bleachers, and scream at the top of your lungs.
And you feel completely empowered by that choice.
Exactly. You spend your entire life fighting the people in the other colored jerseys. You study the stats, you argue on forums, you feel like a genuine warrior engaged in a vital, high-stakes battle between good and evil.
But you're missing the point.
You completely fundamentally fail to realize that you just paid $75 for the ticket to get into the stadium. You paid $20 for parking.
Yep.
You are buying $15 watery beers, and the billionaire who owns the stadium, he owns both teams.
Both of them.
He manufactures both colored jerseys in the exact same overseas sweatshop. He does not care in the slightest if the red team wins or the blue team wins the championship.
Not at all.
He only cares that the stadium remains at maximum capacity and that the emotional tension is high enough to ensure you buy season tickets next year.
That is a flawless expansion of the dynamic the text is describing. The conflict itself is the product.
The conflict is the product.
And the author elevates this from a simple, cynical political critique into a massive philosophical and spiritual crisis. They don't just reference modern media, they bring in incredibly heavy, ancient philosophical frameworks.
Like what?
They explicitly mention Plato's cave.
Which is the classic foundational allegory for the illusion of reality in Western philosophy.
Right. For those who need a refresher, Plato described prisoners chained inside a dark cave since birth, facing a blank wall.
Right, they can only see straight ahead.
Behind them is a fire, and people walk in front of the fire carrying objects, casting shadows on the wall. The prisoners believe those shadows are the absolute totality of reality.
Because it's all they've ever known.
If a prisoner were to break free, walk outside into the blinding sunlight, see the real trees and the real sun, and then return to tell the others,
They wouldn't believe him.
the chained prisoners would violently resist him. They would call him insane for challenging the reality of the shadows. The text then references The Matrix, which is essentially the Wachowskis' cyberpunk update to Plato's cave. But then Radio-MANNADORO goes even deeper, past Western philosophy entirely, and invokes the Kali Yuga.
I flagged that when I was reading, the Kali Yuga. What exactly is the theological or cosmological context of that, and why use it here?
In Hindu cosmology, the universe doesn't progress linearly. Time moves in massive, millions of years-long cycles called yugas.
Okay.
There are 4 yugas, representing a gradual decline in morality, truth, and human capability.
So it gets worse over time.
Exactly. The Kali Yuga is the 4th, final, and absolute darkest age. It's often called the Age of Iron or the Age of Hypocrisy.
The age of hypocrisy. That fits.
It is characterized by immense conflict, spiritual degeneration, intellectual decay, and a total structural inversion of truth. It's an era where society is ruled by the lowest, most base materialistic impulses, and true spiritual wisdom is almost entirely forgotten.
So by saying we are buried alive in the Kali Yuga, Radio-MANNADORO is drastically elevating the stakes. They are saying this isn't just a bad election cycle. It's not just a flawed social media algorithm. It is a profound, destined, spiritual dark age.
Yes. And in the suffocating darkness of this specific age, we have willingly reduced ourselves to mere cheerleaders and ultras.
Ultras being the European term for those hardcore, sometimes violent, fanatic soccer hooligans?
Precisely. We are just hooligans brawling in the stands, cheering until we lose our voices for political and cultural factions that absolutely fundamentally do not care if we live or die.
I want to pause the analysis for a second and turn directly to you, the listener. I want you to really think about your own behavior over the past week.
This is a good exercise.
How often do you get genuinely physiologically worked up over a political debate online? Think about the physical sensation.
Your blood pressure literally rises.
Your heart rate actually spikes, your breathing gets shallow, you type out a furious multi-paragraph reply on your keyboard, and as you hit send, you feel this massive, intoxicating rush of righteous indignation.
You feel alive.
You feel like a crusader fighting the good fight for truth. But reading this manifesto, it acts as that cold water. It forces you to ask a horrifying question.
Which is?
Are you actually changing the fabric of reality? Or are you just flawlessly executing your programming as a cheerleader?
Ouch.
Are you genuinely fighting the system, or are you just providing the emotional raw material, the elevated heart rate, the time on site that feeds an algorithm designed to profit off your stress?
It's an incredibly sobering, almost paralyzing question. And the text suggests, without hesitation, that your outrage is never a threat to the system.
Never.
Your outrage is the very thermodynamic fuel that the system runs on.
Which naturally and painfully drags us into Section 3 of our deep dive. circus seals, and the business of wishful thinking.
This is where it gets really personal.
It is. This is where we transition from the grand philosophical architecture of The Truman Show down into the gritty psychological manipulation of the individual user.
Down in the mud.
There's one quote from the text here that is so visceral, so dripping with disdain, it honestly made me wince, physically wince, when I read it. The author says users are, quote, trained like circus seals, applauding for a click of a dopamine fish reward.
It is brilliant, but absolutely brutal imagery. It strips away all of our perceived intellectual autonomy.
It's incredibly demeaning. But also, as I sat there offended, I had to ask myself, can you honestly argue with the mechanics of the metaphor?
It's hard to.
When you are sitting on your couch at 1 a.m., bathed in the blue light of your phone, mindlessly double-tapping a glass screen, watching a little gray heart icon turn bright red, you are literally performing a conditioned motor trick in exchange for a neurochemical treat.
You are the seal balancing the ball.
You are the seal balancing the ball on your nose for a sardine. But here's where it gets really interesting, and where the text goes beyond a simple critique of phone addiction.
Right. It's not just screen time.
It's not just about mindless, numb scrolling. It is about the complex emotional supply and demand of the internet. There is a specific narrative anecdote embedded in the manifesto that I think perfectly encapsulates this psychological trap.
Ah, yes. The interaction in the YouTube comment section. It's the emotional crux of the whole essay.
Exactly. The author paints a very specific scenario. A user watches a video by some creator. Maybe it's a counterculture commentator, maybe an alternative news source promising the real truth. And the user, clearly exhausted by the state of the world, writes a desperate, emotionally fraught comment.
Don't give me false hope.
Don't give me false hope. And the devastating, ice-cold, utterly cynical reply from the creator of the video is, but you're asking for it every time you click.
That brief, fictionalized exchange is a masterclass in understanding what the text calls the business of wishful thinking.
The business of wishful thinking.
And it requires a profound paradigm shift, a real psychological breakdown of our assumptions to truly grasp. The standard, comfortable narrative we are taught is that massive tech companies and manipulative content creators are tricking innocent, truth-seeking people.
Right.
Radio-MANNADORO rejects that victimhood narrative entirely. The text posits a much darker reality.
Which is?
That people actively, consciously crave online manipulation.
They want it.
They do not want the harsh, unvarnished, terrifying truth of the Kali Yuga. They want a product the author terms info resonance.
Info resonance. That sounds like a corporate buzzword, but let's break down what it actually means mechanically.
Think about the physics of resonance. Resonance occurs when an external frequency perfectly matches the natural internal frequency of an object, causing it to vibrate with greater amplitude.
Okay, physics lesson. I'm with you.
In the context of digital psychology, info-resonance means that users are scouring the internet, scrolling through hundreds of videos and articles, not because they are genuinely seeking out challenging, paradigm-shifting new facts. They are actively hunting for a voice, a creator, an article that perfectly echoes and amplifies their pre-existing biases, their deep-seated fears, and their desperate hopes.
Wow.
They want a daddy figure to look into the camera and tell them that they are right, that the bad guys are eventually going to lose, and that a secret, complex plan is working behind the scenes to save them from the dark age.
It's profoundly comforting. It acts as an emotional anesthetic.
Exactly. It's a digital pacifier for adults. And this completely changes the moral dynamic between the creator and the viewer.
How so?
The creator in that YouTube anecdote isn't maliciously tricking a poor, innocent user. The creator is a rational businessman, supplying a highly lucrative product in an environment of infinite demand.
The demand for false hope.
The market environment is what the author calls the doom scroller era. And the specific product being sold is wishful thinking. When the user types, "Don't give me false hope," they are essentially walking into a massive candy store, handing the cashier a $20 bill for a 5-pound bag of refined sugar, and tearfully begging the cashier, "Please don't give me cavities."
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
You are actively purchasing the comforting illusion by the very mechanical act of clicking on the video that promises a neat, tidy narrative where your side wins.
Okay, I follow the logic, but I have to push back here on behalf of the listener, and honestly on behalf of my own sanity.
I knew this was coming.
I need to play devil's advocate. Surely this is far too cynical a view of human curiosity.
Is it?
Surely, out of the billions of people online, some people go onto the internet to actually learn, to genuinely seek out alternative information precisely because they recognize the mainstream media is failing them or lying to them.
People like to think so.
People who spend hours reading independent journalism or watching long-form interviews, they aren't just looking for a pacifier, are they? They are trying to wake up.
It's a completely fair and natural pushback. We want to believe in our own intellectual nobility. But the source text anticipates this exact defense and counters it with ruthless efficiency.
Of course it does.
Radio-MANNADORO argues that the very act of seeking alternative information has itself been co-opted, sterilized, and packaged into just another consumer product.
Packaged rebellion.
Exactly. This is precisely why the author viciously attacks specific counterculture commentators like Francesco Toscano, explicitly calling them gatekeepers.
A gatekeeper implies someone standing in front of a door controlling who gets to leave the prison.
Yes. The text's argument is that the entire alternative media sphere, the so-called truther movement or independent media landscape, is really just another demographic market segmentation.
It's just another slice of the pie.
It's not a rebellion, it's a demographic. It is simply choosing the blue jersey instead of the red jersey from our stadium analogy.
Oh, what?
You read a subversive blog or watch a 3-hour podcast about government corruption, and you get a massive neurochemical rush of superiority. You think to yourself, I have unplugged from the matrix. I am a free thinker.
I know exactly that feeling.
But the text argues that the matrix simply built a highly profitable subroutine called subversive blog, specifically designed to keep your demographic engaged.
That is maddening.
You haven't escaped the circus. You are still a circus seal. You have just smugly chosen a different colored ball to balance on your nose.
Wow. So the rebellion itself is fully commodified. The feeling of waking up is just another product you can buy with your attention?
Completely. The system is entirely indifferent to the content of your media consumption.
Mm-hmm.
It only cares about the mechanics of your consumption.
Right.
As long as you are clicking, viewing, scrolling, and reacting, even if you are reacting to content that explicitly tells you the system is evil, you are safely contained inside the attention funnel market.
Because you're still producing data.
You are actively generating metadata. You are generating ad revenue. Your profound righteous belief that you are awake is the exact dopamine fish reward that is being used to keep you tethered to the platform.
Which drags us, kicking and screaming against our will, into Section 4, the digital logger and active complicity.
This is the darkest part.
It is, and I want to issue a serious warning to you, the listener. If you thought the circus seal metaphor was offensive, buckle up. This is by far the darkest, heaviest, and most historically provocative argument in the entire 50-page manifesto.
It really pushes the boundaries.
The text shifts from mocking the user's intelligence to outright accusing the user of being an active, malicious agent of their own enslavement.
It is the absolute moral nadir of the text, without a doubt. It is where the philosophy turns from cynical observation to an indictment of human nature.
I want to approach this cautiously but directly because the language the author chooses to use is incredibly intense and fraught with historical trauma.
Very fraught.
The text accuses the audience of being, and I quote directly here, complacent and hired as capos in the digital logger.
We need to pause and carefully unpack the immense historical weight of those specific words to understand the severity of the critique.
Please do.
Lager is the German word for camp, universally recognized in this context as referring to the concentration camps of the Holocaust. And a capo was a very specific tragic figure within that horrific system.
Right.
A capo was a prisoner within the concentration camp who was assigned by the SS guards to supervise forced labor or carry out administrative tasks among their fellow prisoners.
It was a system of forced complicity.
Exactly. It was a psychological control mechanism designed to pit the prisoners against each other. It forced the oppressed to violently enforce the rules of their oppressors, usually in exchange for tiny, pathetic, life-saving privileges.
Like an extra ration of bread.
Or a slightly better pair of boots. To take that specific historical metaphor, born of the greatest atrocity of the 20th century, and apply it to our modern digital behavior on social media.
It is deeply shocking.
But Radio-MANNADORO intends to shock you.
How does that metaphor mechanically map onto our internet behavior, though? If Silicon Valley is the logger, how exactly are we acting as the capos?
In the physical world, a prison requires thousands of guards to maintain order. But in the digital world, the algorithms and the tech CEOs are the architects of the logger, but they don't actually have to police it.
They outsourced it to us.
They outsource the policing to us. We police each other. The text is arguing that through the mechanics of cancel culture, through the mob mentality of ratioing people on Twitter, through the constant panopticon-like surveillance and brutal moral judgment of our peers' social media presence, we have willingly become the brutal enforcers of our own digital prison.
We enforce the ideological conformity.
We relentlessly punish those who step out of line or express a nuanced thought. We do the dirty work of psychological control for the platforms, keeping everyone constantly engaged in a state of low-level, exhausting anxiety and tribal conflict.
It's the ultimate economics of self-exploitation. The source states this dynamic so explicitly, and it's a quote that forces you to read it twice.
Which one?
It says, you work for them, spend for them, pay taxes to them, give all your time to them. That is, to yourselves, you are them.
You are them. That three-word sentence is the terrifying, inescapable conclusion of the manifesto.
It just hits so hard.
The binary illusion of us versus them is shattered.
Yeah.
There is no external enemy anymore. The oppressor and the oppressed have merged into a single Ouroboros-like digital entity.
Let's break down how this complicity functions on a daily basis.
Okay.
Every single time you leave a furious, outraged comment on a post you disagree with, even if your intent is noble, even if you are pointing out a genuine social injustice, you are generating high-value algorithmic engagement for the platform. Every time you share a tragic news story about a war zone and add a performative caption about thinking of those who have it worse, Radio-MANNADORO views this not as empathy, but as hypocritical, narcissistic fuel for the digital chain.
Exactly right.
But wait, how is expressing empathy hypocritical fuel?
Because the underlying mechanism isn't about helping the victim in the war zone. It's about optimizing your own digital avatar.
Oh, wow.
You get to feel morally superior for 3 seconds, a potent dopamine hit, while the platform simultaneously sells your micro-targeted demographic data to an advertiser based on your emotional engagement.
So you're capitalizing on tragedy for social credit.
You are mining your own empathy to generate profit for the architect of the logger.
It's like, let's push the prison analogy further. Imagine a dystopian scenario where you are arrested and tasked with building your own prison cell.
Okay, building my own cell.
But it's so much worse and more insidious than that. You aren't just building it. You have to wake up every day and work a grueling 9-to-5 job in the real world just to earn the currency required to buy the digital bricks for your own prison cell.
Right, buying the phone.
You purchase the smartphone, you pay the monthly data plan, you mix and lay the mortar yourself by setting up your profiles.
Curating the feed.
You install the iron bars by agreeing to the terms of service. And then, when the cell is perfectly finished, you willingly lock yourself inside, swallow the key, and spend the rest of your natural life aggressively arguing with your cellmate through the iron bars about what color you should paint the concrete walls.
That is so true.
You become so incredibly distracted, so consumed by the vicious debate over the paint color, the daily political outrage, that you completely forget that you built the cell in the first place and that you are paying a monthly subscription fee to stay inside it.
That analogy perfectly, flawlessly captures both the absurdity and the deep tragedy of the complacent capo.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
We are actively, enthusiastically maintaining the physical and psychological infrastructure of our own alienation. And the most terrifying part is how fiercely we defend ourselves.
We do defend them.
If a friend suggests, hey, maybe we should delete our apps, throw our smartphones in the river, and just walk away into the woods, we look at them like they're an absolute lunatic.
Like they're crazy.
We pathologize the desire for freedom. We love ourselves. We are deeply romantically attached to our chain.
We really, truly are. We defend the utility of the chains, but how will I stay connected? How will I read the news?
Exactly.
And that bleak realization brings us to Section 5, Parasites of Consensus and the Sarcophagus.
This is a wild pivot.
If we are the prisoners willingly building the cell, who are the people handing us the blueprints? Let's pivot from the masses to the content creators themselves.
The architects of the narrative.
The source uses another brutal biological metaphor here. It moves from ruminants and seals to calling these creators parasites, exploiting the consensus, sucking the brains of a micro-niche.
And we need to pay close attention to that term, micro-niche.
A micro-niche of disillusioned people.
This is a crucial distinction. Radio-MANNADORO isn't just launching a lazy critique at mainstream multimillionaire pop stars or network news anchors. They are specifically, surgically targeting the alternative, pseudo-intellectual independent creators, the ones who posture as truth-tellers, but who actually prey on the anxiety and isolation of people who feel deeply disconnected from mainstream society.
Right, but to understand the parasite, we have to understand the host body they are feeding on.
The general public.
And the text provides a very specific, fascinating, real-world data point to illustrate the cultural backdrop of this entire dynamic. The author states, almost as an aside, 1 in 5 Italians watched Sanremo.
Sanremo.
Now, for the listener who might not be immersed in European pop culture, Sanremo is the Italian song festival, but that description really doesn't do it justice.
It's massive.
It is a massive, incredibly glitzy, highly commercialized, week-long cultural monolith. It is essentially the Super Bowl of Italian pop music combined with the Oscars. It shuts the country down.
Exactly. It is the pinnacle of manufactured, brightly lit, mass-market entertainment. But the analytical question is, why does Radio-Mannadoro suddenly drop this specific pop culture statistic into the middle of a dense philosophical manifesto about the Kali Yuga and digital concentration camps? What is the rhetorical purpose?
It's the contrast, isn't it?
Yes. It represents the complete, terrifying normalization of the absurd. The text states, you are only here to normalize the scandal that now scandalizes no one anymore.
Normalize the scandal.
The author is pointing out a profound cognitive dissonance. While the geopolitical world is literally burning, while wars rage, while economies teeter on the brink, and while we are supposedly trapped in a dystopian digital concentration camp, 20% of the entire population of a G7 nation is happily glued to a screen watching a manufactured, sparkly lip-synced pop contest.
It's the ultimate Roman concept of bread and circuses updated for the fiber optic age.
Exactly. It mathematically proves that nothing can shock the collective consciousness anymore. We have developed an infinite capacity for cognitive dissonance.
We really have.
We can hold the literal, live-streamed apocalypse in our left hand and mass, vacuous, glittering entertainment in our right hand, and our brains simply accept both as equal streams of content.
It all just blurs together.
We consume the end of the world as just another genre of entertainment, neatly categorized right next to the pop music festival.
And meanwhile, those alternative creators, those pseudo-intellectual parasites we mentioned, they are feasting on the demographic that refuses to watch Sanremo.
Right, the outsiders.
The parasites set up their microphones and say, look at those pathetic, brainwashed sheep watching the music festival. They are asleep, but you are awake.
Flattery.
Come over here to my independent channel where I will validate your superiority by telling you exactly how terrible the world is for the low, low price of your $99 monthly Patreon subscription.
It's a grift.
And understanding that dynamic leads to the absolute most claustrophobic, panic-inducing imagery in the entire text, the concept of the sarcophagus.
Yes. Let's look very closely at this specific translation of that quote. The author writes, "You are already all buried alive, breaking your nails against your sarcophagus."
I have to tell you, when I first read that sentence alone in my apartment, I physically shivered. The claustrophobia of it is suffocating.
It is meant to induce a feeling of total asphyxiation. It implies that all of our frenetic online activity, the thousands of tweets, the angry comment threads, the endless debating of economic policy with strangers, the urgent sharing of important articles,
none of it matters.
It isn't a rescue flare being shot into the sky. It is not a ladder being built to climb out of Plato's cave.
What is it, really?
It is simply the pathetic, muffled sound of a corpse frantically scratching his fingernails against the inside lid of its own buried coffin.
Oof, that visual.
It makes a tiny noise in the dark, yes. But it changes absolutely nothing about your dead, buried condition. You're just wearing down your own nails.
That is the purest definition of cynicism I have ever encountered. And I mean that in the deepest, most rigorous philosophical sense.
Oh, absolutely.
In modern parlance, we throw the word cynical around casually to describe someone who is just a bit grumpy or negative or skeptical of a politician's motives. But this is weaponized, terminal cynicism.
It is. The text demands a Spartan, brutal, almost violently ascetic approach to perceiving reality. It viciously attacks anyone who is seeking hope online, because it views hope not as a virtue, but as the ultimate psychological vulnerability.
Hope is a vulnerability.
Hope is the shiny lure on the end of the hook that the digital parasites use to catch the dopamine fish. True cynicism, in the ancient Greek tradition of Diogenes the Cynic, who lived in a barrel and mocked Alexander the Great, isn't just a bad attitude.
Right.
It is the painful, necessary, surgical stripping away of all comforting illusions. The text insists on a terrifying absolute. It says, good won't triumph because good doesn't exist.
Good won't triumph because good doesn't exist. I need to just sit with that for a moment.
It's heavy.
How do you even process a worldview that bleak? If good doesn't exist, if every interaction is just parasites feeding on capos, who are in turn managing the normaloids, what is the point of any of it? Why even get out of bed?
The point, according to the twisted logic of Radio-MANNADORO, is that by accepting this absolute bleakness, you finally see the machinery of the world for what it truly is.
It's clarifying.
The form of dark enlightenment. If you finally truly stop waiting for the good guys to win, if you stop waiting for a benevolent political savior to get elected, or a brave whistleblower to dismantle the matrix, or an algorithm to suddenly become ethical, you might finally stop engaging with the system altogether.
You just walk away.
You stop feeding the machine your hope. And hope, the author argues, is the machine's absolute favorite food. Despair is the only posture that starves the parasite.
Wow, it's a complete philosophical scorched earth policy. You burn down your own mind so the parasite has nothing left to eat.
Exactly.
Which brings us to our outro. The final drops of the cocktail, the bottom of the glass, the end of the tape.
The end of the broadcast. The static returning.
As we wrap this incredibly heavy deep dive up, I want to touch on the final fatalistic economic critique the text leaves us with. It talks about the illusion of plus valor, which translates from Italian to surplus value.
Surplus value, yes.
Now, this is a classic Marxist economic term. Originally, in the 19th century, it referred to the literal physical extra value a factory worker produces that is stolen by the capitalist owner as profit. You make 10 chairs, you're paid for 2, the owner keeps the value of the other 8.
Right, physical labor.
But Radio-MANNADORO adapts this for the 21st century. In this digital context, it's the positivism of surplus value, the desperate, pathetic idea that if we just keep grinding on social media, if we keep engaging, keep networking, keep tirelessly building our personal brands, we will eventually extract some permanent, meaningful, transferable value from the digital ether.
We believe we are building a legacy.
We really do.
But the text shatters that illusion of digital legacy with the ultimate, unavoidable equalizer. It sweeps away all the complex economic theory and reminds the reader of a stark, biological, undeniable fact.
Which is?
It simply states, more comunque. Translated, you will die anyway.
Yeah, you will die anyway. It hits like a hammer.
It does.
Yeah.
All the surplus value you think you are so cleverly generating, the massive follower counts, the viral tweets that got millions of impressions, the digital influence, the affiliate link money made from the attention economy, it is all a fleeting, pathetic, vaporous illusion.
It means nothing.
Nobody takes their money to the grave. Nobody takes their Instagram likes to the grave.
Definitely not.
You do not get to cash in your retweet count or your verified checkmark at the gates of the afterlife. The text views the entire digital ecosystem as a finite game. It is a closed loop played exclusively by marketers selling garbage and parasites sucking attention.
It's a rigged game.
And the only winning move in a rigged finite game
is to refuse to play. Game over. Stop the signal.
Exactly. To embrace the silence. To let the cathode ray tube burn out.
I think we need to just let that truth sit heavy in the air for a second.
Yeah.
The smoke in this room is finally settling. The ice in the glasses has melted. And as we close out this broadcast, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought. A practical, terrifying question for you to ponder in the absolute ringing silence that will follow when this audio file stops playing.
What is the core question you want them to take away from this manifesto?
If every single click you make tomorrow morning, when you wake up, roll over in bed, and instinctively, mindlessly reach for your phone, if every single tap on that glass screen is just another pixelated brick you were laying in your own digital sarcophagus,
right?
And if you now know definitively how the magician does his tricks, what are you actually going to do?
What's the next move?
The next time you feel that itch, that phantom vibration against your leg, that desperate chemical urge to pull that glowing rectangle out of your pocket just to see who is angry at who today, will you willingly feed the circus? Will you balance the ball on your nose for the dopamine fish? Or will you embrace the static? Will you stop the signal?
In the Kali Yuga, that might be the only sovereign choice we have left.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly dark, incredibly necessary deep dive. Let me just get this lighter one more time. Flick, flick. And the exhale. We'll catch you on the flip side. If you're still listening,